Hey, what's up? It's Max.
It's RJ.
And you're listening to Streaming Cassettes on Wingman of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have been doing as like our running theme. We have another interview and another exciting time. I'm pumped.
Me too.
We got ourselves Danny and David from Manic. What's going on, guys?
Hello, hello.
What's up?
That's
What's
Manic
up?
Manicure.
Yes.
Manicure. Get your manicure, and you can get manic year across your fingernails. I've always wanted to do that.
I'm trying. Actually, you can pull that off. It's 9 letters, right? And you just do an exclamation point
And the space.
Yeah,
Or an exclamation point. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Good work.
Manicure. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's funny.
So RJ, you kind of know a little bit on Manicure, or actually, didn't you guys follow us? Actually, I think was that the backstory here.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys popped up in my feed at some point. Definitely always trolling the Instagram scene.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, we love having the followers and stuff, and like whenever you're starting out and trying to get your art or your craft out there, it's good to kind of have people support you that you don't expect. So that makes it kind of like ever connecting, I guess, if that's the best term.
Yeah, you guys are in Vermont, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Right in kind of the southern Vermont area, Rutland, near like Killington and the ski area.
Awesome.
And you guys are based out in like Northern California, right?
That's right. It was a beautiful sunny day, California today for us.
Yeah, we had some sun today, but it was kind of cold.
Yeah, Vermont heat waves.
Better than Texas, I'm sure.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So let's kind of get a little backstory on. So obviously, being that you're kind of more in like the rock sense, a little alt as well. How did the kind of like Manic form together? Like, how did you two kind of meet up? Kind of, what's your story?
I'll do a quick like prologue, and then I'll hand it off to Danny. But basically, Danny and I were in a band a million years ago. We were like a pop punk. We played a bunch of like local shows and did some all right recordings of our music. And then basically had a gigantic falling out. More or less we're mortal enemies for about 10 years. And so I have to say, Brian is the third musician involved in Manic. He is an incredible guitarist, incredible musician, and producer. And he was also in that band from when I was in high school and Danny was just out of high school. And then while I was pretending to not be a musician anymore, Danny and Brian had some little reconnection.
So I turned 30 about 5 years ago, believe it or not. And at the risk of sounding old, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the band The Matches. They got pretty big. They signed with Epitaph, I think in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Had some pretty good success. Ended up breaking up really about the time actually when David and I became mortal enemies. But anyway, so for my 30th birthday, I actually had the lead singer Sean Harris play a show in my backyard, and yeah, it was an incredible way to ring in 30. And David wasn't there because we hated each other, but Brian was there, and Brian picked up a guitar that was lying around and just started messing around, started playing some of our old band or songs from our old band back in the day. And he was like, man, we should be a pop punk band again. And I was like, dude, I'm ready. It had been like 6 or 7 years. And so he and I just started hanging out. He would come over to my house like once or twice a week, and we would just record. And we ended up with probably about 7 or 8 demos with no vocals. And he and I had kind of hit somewhat of a wall in terms of our writing process, because he and I we're not prominent vocalists. We're much more guitar and bass oriented guys, and we fooled around with a couple of vocalists, and it just wasn't working out. But we felt so good about these demos that we had made. I mean, it had been by far the best music that we had put together probably ever. And so, it had been a long enough time where I felt that, I think it's time to just let bygones be bygones. And so I reached out to David, and I texted him. David, I don't think I said anything. I think I just sent you the songs, and I was just like, dude, we need you. And David, tell me, how you felt from there. But first time he and I had contact in 9 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. So it's all kind of very poetic, and also like I had since like falling away from Danny, I was trying to like become a writer, like a fiction writer, and then I went to school to be a high school teacher. And so I was in that program when Danny hit me up, and he just sent me these. You also sent a black heart emoji. I'll remember that for some reason. It's very sentimental to me. But yeah, it was emotional for me. And to really illustrate that, Danny, do you remember when we first met up? I was like, all right, we need to pick a public place. there was a part of I'm a neurotic guy, for lack of a better word. So sometimes I think too much. I'll get paranoid thoughts. I'll come up with stories or whatever. And I was like, is this guy, like, literally 9 years, no words, right, from this guy who was once a very good friend. And I wondered, is he like catfishing me? Is he setting me up to like hurt me or something?
Because this was not an amicable break off of a relationship.
Right.
I had literally cut him out of my life completely.
Right.
And there was actually, like, my circle of friends made a point of making him like our enemy. So it was not pretty.
I just because we're being so vague, I'll just say that like there was no damage between Danny and I. It was more so that like I had a big problem, a big explosion with someone that Danny was related with. It was a third party that essentially forced us to choose sides, and so that created the rift.
Got you. Okay.
So I think that's yeah. A female third party. I think that's a little more like relatable or illustrative. Anyway, yeah. So just to finish this all is so much prologue, but I was like, all right, Danny, let's meet up in a public place, and I was really nervous because I have clinical anxiety, and so I go to meet him at this like fountain in an outdoor wall that we've agreed to meet on. And I walk up and I see him for the first time in, almost a decade. And we are wearing the exact same outfit. like
That's great.
Like it was like a denim. We were both wearing like a denim jacket and like khaki cutoff. It was uncanny. But that sort of broke the ice, and used all of that emotional rapture to makes some really fucking like energetic, cathartic music starting then.
Wow. I love hearing that. Especially because I've had my own version of hiatuses with friends, for a couple of years too, and then you rebond, and it's almost like you kind of realize when you have that space apart. And I don't want to speak for you two because everything's different, but for at least my situation, you almost kind of like when you're separated, you can kind of look back and like, wow, okay, we had so much of this that was good. And you kind of can sort of like break down like, okay, what was like the hiccup? And you talk it out. And I think that's what's really interesting. And for you guys, it sounds like it's really the music that made you realize that. So it's really cool to hear that, especially for like being like almost a decade. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I personally had some shit go down in my life that I think just really just kind of put things into perspective. And the stuff that came between me and David just got to a point where it's just like, you know what, life's just too short. We had such a good past and we had so much fun. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we're so much older and mature, and we've lived lives. We have other stuff that event is relative to. So yeah, but you're right. Like it was really cool to have an example of that sort of reunion, right? Like things will come back to you. I'm very inspired by like cycles and like the idea that like anything that you lose will sort of return to you in some way. I never thought I was going to make music again, and now I wake up, it's my first thought in the morning is like, okay, I gotta what's the next song I want to work on. So yeah, and I partially have Danny to thank for that because he just threw the ball back in my court.
With a black heart emoji, mind you.
That's what grabbed me.
I swear can I swear on here?
Yes. We're a pro swear network.
Love it. I'm a huge fan of profanity.
Yes.
I'm gonna get a black heart emoji just for you, or a tattoo just for you, Danny.
Oh.
I felt like it was I don't know. It had good meaning behind it, but it wasn't like, super touchy feely, the black kind of
Black.
It was a little more neutral than the red.
Yeah.
Or purple one.
Yeah, like trying to warm up, it's like a coal. You have to just heat it up. Burn that flame.
Yeah, if he'd just thrown the yellow one at me, I would have been like, what the?
Way too much energy. Like way too excited. Like what?
Yeah.
So when that reunion happened, when did that kind of transition to maybe like some of the like you had some demos? Did you just kind of cut a lot of the songs from the demos you set, or there's other songs that you collaborated with after this reunion?
Yeah, so before this EP that David's going to talk about here in a minute came to life, we ended up putting out 4 singles, and 2 out of the 4 came from those demos that Brian and I had put together, and
we re-recorded, right?
Yeah. But essentially that's what they were, and then David added his touch to them. And we also, the 4th song we did was actually a cover of "Wouldn't It Be Nice." We did a pop punk version of it, which I'm actually very proud of.
That's dope.
Yeah, Danny sings a lot on that, and it sounds amazing. Most of the 99% of the vocals are me, but Danny chimes in on our song "Talk," and on "Wouldn't It Be Nice," he sings like a whole section. And you don't sing on "Good Kid"? No, you sing the chorus. You sing the chorus on "Good Kid." What am I talking about? He sings on "Good Kid." These are our singles that have already been released, and so I want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those tracks, "Talking Good Kid." It was really solid. And what's really cool too is I love kind of how maybe you're noticing this. Like I feel like kind of the punk rock sound, at least in the mainstream, is getting dabbled in again, which is really cool. You know, from the likes of like maybe like a MGK to a Black Bear, and then even more like your traditional bands like maybe like Blink and stuff are kind of getting a renaissance. So I think it's pretty neat to see this come back around because we're both kind of from the era that punk was like peak for us, like in middle school. So like we absolutely love it.
Yeah, did you hear the new Mod Sun album?
No, I don't think
Mod
so.
Sun?
How is it?
Oh, so it's essentially the sequel to MGK's pop punk album, if you ask me. It's the exact same like feel. So if you like Tickets to My Downfall, is that the name of it? If you like that, then check out Mod Sun, MODSUN.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just more to your point that like, yeah, I don't know if just like people are feeling angsty and rebellious and they like those like fast drum beats again, or if it's just like I was talking about before, the cycles are that's swinging back into our favor. But we definitely have shown some people our music and they're like, yeah, this is fine, but it kind of reminds me of my it kind of reminds me of my teen years or something, and I'm like, all right, well, we don't want to just be nostalgic, so.
No, honestly, I feel like they might not know like this, like it's kind of coming back in some fashion. Obviously, there's probably different variations, but.
Yeah, I think that especially with the new stuff, though, we bleed genres much more, and I'm excited to see, where that takes us eventually. Because but Danny and I, we like a lot of different kinds of music. Danny's like a huge fan of like some psychedelic rock, and I like Max. You're the hip hop guy of the duo, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Hip hop and EDM. Yep.
Yeah. So you're into that fun stuff that I'm also very partial to. So I like to throw that in the mix as well.
Yeah, actually, I know we wanted to tackle some of that stuff on your playlist. Actually, at some
Yeah,
point.
I love that playlist you made on Spotify. Like, it was
so
like from like Silent Planet to like Kanye West. I was like, this is awesome. I mean, nobody really does that anymore. Like, hey, yeah, I just like metal. There's nobody that's like us. Like, I love Silent Planet, but Taylor Swift, hell yeah. Like, like you don't see that much nowadays.
Yeah, I've listened to a few episodes of your guys' podcast, and I think that's a really cool thing that you guys offer is sort of like, you guys are just sort of music nerds in general. You're not like a metal podcast or a hip hop podcast. Like you like music and you get together and talk about it, and I think that's cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we kind of felt like this yin and yang would be sort of fun because I feel like you said, either people are very, very specific to their niche, or the other realm too. I'll watch their stuff, like the Anthony Fantanos of the world. Like they're so into the reviews, and not that you need those in the scene, but I feel like we're kind of in that middle where it's like, you know what? Like if you're just kind of sitting at a bar and like sort of shooting the breeze, but you actually gave a damn about what songs were out there from different genres and stuff, what would that conversation be like? I feel like that's kind of the emphasis of our show.
Yeah. You lose the whole point of music is to enjoy it and to vibe with it. And when you are like, I don't know, like whatever process you have to go through with a record to write a Pitchfork review, I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's enjoying it and vibing with it. I think that there's such meticulous like mastication and rumination that they basically suck all of the magic out of it.
Right.
I used to want to be a music critic really bad, a music journalist, but like it almost ruined music for me.
I mean, if I was a music journalist or critic, I would just hate everything. Like everything would just suck.
Danny's a tough critic.
Great branding.
Dude, yeah. I told Danny last night, we did a little warm-up Zoom, and I said, man, I know I was just kind of winging it with these safe space tracks, but like there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm always from him because he how do I put this? Danny likes 5 bands. Danny likes there's literally like a maximum of 5 bands and like let's be honest, it's more like 4. So like to send Danny a track I just made and have him be like, holy shit, you nailed it. That's a miracle. And so I don't know, maybe we're in some sort of like codependent relationship where I feel the need I have to like tackle that mountain or whatever it is, but it happened a few times with Safe Space, and it's the best feeling to win Danny over.
I have to ask now, what are
Yeah.
these mystical 4 or 5 bands that Danny validates?
I mean, David, I'm sure you can name them, no problem. Right off the top.
Well, let's see. You're wearing a Tame Impala shirt, so that's safe. He likes Tame Impala, which is cool. I'm down with that. I feel. Am I kind of like Tame Impala now, Danny? That I'm making a whole EP mostly by myself. Isn't that what your homeboy does? No, he's a real musician. And the aforementioned matches, which if you guys, they're kind of local to us, but if you guys haven't checked them out, you should definitely look up the matches. They're something for everybody. They're like, imagine if like you took Connor Oberst of Bright Eyes and like gave him a bunch of speed and like, and then like you, and then you had him singing over My Chemical Romance or something like it just is
MCR,
one of a kind.
Right.
Yeah, Danny's very, very selective.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. You know what you like, you know what you like, you know? Like that drink at the bar. It's like you know it. So I know you might have a couple questions, RJ.
I do. And is Danny still good?
Yeah, I can probably do one more question.
Okay, this will be for both of you then. I think we all dealt with it. So, and David, I know you really dealt with it with COVID. How did you guys handle the whole thing, being a band and just being individuals?
Well, this whole thing, this safe space is kind of really and I'll let David get into it a little bit deeper, but I mean, this is really why safe space was created, honestly, was because of COVID. I mean, it's kind of just the result of the situation that we're given. We were, me, Brian and David, we would all huddle into Brian's little home studio, and we would crank out these singles, and COVID hit, and then all of a sudden, that's gone. And so it really, David, you can probably take it from here, but I mean, he really took the initiative to really start branching out and taking the initiative and just doing whatever you can with what you've got. And he went out. David, what'd you end up getting?
So safe space meant like a new DAW. So we had like a whole new like software for recording. And I got like a controller for that. So like the thing with the buttons and the knobs and stuff. And we had the mic, because I bought the mic so we could record, talk, etc. And luckily when COVID first started, I actually built a PC with my brother's help, because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna need something to do. So I invested in like a gaming PC, and then I was like, well, I have this like machine and this microphone, and so I just kind of did what I could, and it was interesting because the circumstances forced me to innovate in that, like, I had to essentially the songs on Safe Space are like kind of collages. They include like samples of those original demos that Danny and Brian made before I was even reunited with them. So there's samples of what would become Manic Year. They're several years old. In addition to me on the mic and other stuff that I just recently made. But yeah, it was there. I would say it's more or less the reason why our third member is not joining us right now. Brian is like genius when it comes to guitar and production and music theory and stuff, and he's like a huge asset to it. But just because it's just so hard for us to like logistically get together and stuff, and he and Danny and I live relatively close compared to like Brian, who's a little bit more. It takes freeways to get there.
Okay.
And Brian also has a like lo-fi synthwave project that's like low-key popping off right now, which you might be interested in, Max. They're called Stux.io. It's named after a famous computer virus.
Yeah, I think I've heard
that for the time. Cool. For the time being, that has stolen Brian from us. We're still amicable, but yeah.
I'm writing that down to check out. So that's pretty dope. All right, awesome. Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's just like with all the logistics with like the pandemic and stuff, I can imagine it's hard. Fortunately for like me and RJ, he lives right down the street. We both kind of work in like smaller work environments. So we've been fortunate, but there's been times where we've had these close calls, and we did a couple Zoom ones because you don't know. You have to be precautionary with everything. Right, and then it was David, right, with his mom?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was on his Instagram. So how, I mean, just take it away. I mean, how did that like come to be, and what actually happened?
Yeah, so pretty gnarly actually. It was actually it was a while ago actually, like late spring, early summer, and this is a lot of the emotions from this are what it turned into the lyrics of Safe Space, and we can delve into that in detail later. But yeah, like we were doing everything right. My mom is a retired health. She worked in like a lab at a hospital. My dad's a doctor, and so like we were being like relatively paranoid. Yeah. So just rewind to like late spring, early summer. We were super nervous because my mom's in her 60s, so she's like near that like high risk demographic, but also she has multiple sclerosis, which is it affects your immune system, so she's even higher risk of complications and whatnot. So we were just really not wanting her to have anything to do with COVID-19, and yet then she just like started getting a fever, and it just was like it was like go down the checklist that they were like pasting on CNN every night in those early days. And then eventually she just woke up one morning and she couldn't really breathe, and so my dad had to rush her to the hospital where she had pneumonia, and she was there for 7 nights in the hospital. And yeah, I mean it was I think one of the shittiest things was knowing that like COVID patients are quarantined, right? So that like I remember it was a Friday morning and just seeing my dad drive off with my mom, saying goodbye to her was potentially, you know, the last time I was going to ever be in her presence, you know? So I just was like profusely like, oh my God, Mom, I don't tell you I love you enough, you know? Thank you so much for everything. You know, it was crazy. It was crazy. But she pulled through and she's better now. And she came home and she, you know, she's back doing she loves riding her bike and like going and like swimming at the like local place. They make you like choose an appointment at the local calisthenics pool. But yeah, man, it was punctuated by like at the same time seeing everyone, like all these people on the internet saying it's a hoax or, you know, it's not that bad, or like seeing people like refusing to wear masks. And it was like that's really why I posted about it on Instagram, and I'm open about it and I'm willing to talk about this because like I want people to know that like my mom almost died. Like it's fucking real and it's fucking dangerous. And I think anybody who has had someone close to them or had, you know, someone in their orbit involved or get sick, God forbid, like it becomes real. The consequences become real. But if it's not, I mean, even for me, it was like it's such a weird enemy because it's invisible. You can't see it. You know, you can't. It's just sneaks into your life, and yeah.
It's crazy.
So I got real sad.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is spot on. I mean, just speaking on my behalf, but I feel like the one thing that's baffled my mind the most about this pandemic, and I think this wouldn't have happened 15 years or before just because of the way that people have their own voices in the internet and media and all this stuff, is that a virus could be a divisive political thing or like, you know, this sense of like misbelief. I don't know. That just seems so out of character from how as a country or even as a world we've handled things. But more America seems to be the one that's had this, you know, mixed story or like, you know, some people would say drop in a tinfoil hat. And so it's refreshing. Obviously, mind you, we're very thankful your mom pulled through. I can't imagine, because like some people are asymptomatic and don't notice anything. And then there's actually the scenario like your mother went through, and that's like horrible to see. But it's refreshing to see the honesty. But yes, this is real. Like, why, like, don't listen to the person who's just afraid to admit like they don't want to handle something maturely, so they're just going to spew off stuff just to kind of avoid any sort of like responsibility of it. Like, it's a real thing, and we just have to be diligent and care about each other. So no, I applaud that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. We're obviously not going to solve the whole, you know, conspiracy like movement that the country's kind of experiencing right now on this podcast. But I do think it's not that much to ask to, you know, like wear masks. Like we wear seatbelts, right? Because the government says to. Because the government says it's going to save our lives. Is it really that much harder to wear a mask? So I don't know.
Good point.
No, that's a great point for it.
Yeah. And so obviously COVID affected, like you said, the music. And so let's get into the EP, the new one. So how did that differ from your other like couple of songs that you guys wrote? Because it is a little different that I've noticed. And was there like a plan for that?
It was hugely different. The process was completely different. So we had Talk, Good Kid, Orchids, and the cover of the Beach Boys. Those were all produced by Brian, the third guy that you didn't meet today. I produced Safe Space, and I was simultaneously teaching myself how to produce. I didn't know what I was doing, which was kind of cool, because it was like just like, well, maybe here's this knob. Let me turn this up, and that sounds kind of cool. Like, but it was a lot of learning on the fly, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of like Buggy Brian texting him like, yeah, Brian, what's better, reverb or delay when it's this situation? And yeah, and then on top of that, just not being able to gather and record in-person instruments and stuff like that. So yeah, so it was like I said, these are collages. These are everything from there is samples of Danny and Brian and I's band from when I was 18. I'm 30 now. I think one of you guys is 90, right? Born in 1990.
And I'm 89.
Okay, I'm also 1990.
Okay.
And so I took songs from when I was 18. They're like time capsules, and there's me singing on Safe Space, like 18-year-old me.
Wow,
which is like very sentimental to me and meaningful. Yeah. So stuff like that. It was really, really, really fun to experiment, and I think that's kind of like more than anything what this EP is like it was an experiment in a lot of things. And yeah, it ended up being, it's not like, it's 6 short tracks, but I'm kind of proud of it.
That's cool. I mean, that ties in the name being Safe Space too, I feel. A space, say, can't talk, safe space for kind of like a creative, freedom, for what you wanted to do. And the group as a whole, but yeah.
Dude. Well, absolutely. It really was like I'm not trying to just toot my own horn, but just like practically, yeah, it was just mostly me working on this, and sending Danny tracks every new edits every once in a while to check them out. But no, you're right. That phrase "safe space," I knew before I started that was going to be the title, and it really was my guiding light and my North Star, because COVID was happening, right? And I was like, everyone was like, stay safe. That was like, the common phrase. I'm also obsessed with sci-fi. I love like sci-fi books and shows and video games and stuff. So like it is a double entendre of like, if your safe space is to escape to like some other like, reality or fantasy, that's part of it too. And that comes up a little bit in the lyrics. And also, right, like how music can be your safe space. The cover image is a sketch done by Cody Blocker. He's a guy I went to college with, actually, and we kind of like lost touch, and then I reconnected because he's more or less like an established visual artist right now. Cody Blocker, and he was. Do you guys know BART? The trains we have in the Bay Area.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So it's a Bay Area Rapid Transit. It's just like it's kind of a cross between a subway and like a local transit. But he was just like on BART sketching people when I think he was in art school, and this was just some random dude that he saw, and he just he's got the headphones on. And he's kind of like looking back, and he's kind of like, he's almost got like a timidness to him. And like, to me, that's like a dude in his safe space, right? Like he's on public transit, but he's like bumping his whatever it is that he loves to listen to. And that's what's keeping him feeling at home, even out in the wild.
I was wondering what the inspiration was for the cover album, for the artwork. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, some people have said it kind of looks like me, and I think that's fun. I mentioned that to Cody, and because I was like, dude, like I ride BART all the time. It could have been me. And he's like, you know how weird that would have been if I just drew you and didn't say hi. So It's not, although like the idea is like poetic that like it was me and he just didn't recognize me, and then I found the picture later. But yeah, I love the cover.
That's awesome. I mean, a question I have, I don't want to interrupt your flow, is with obviously with the pandemic and with musicians, I'm going to kind of tweak what we've kind of talked with other artists in the past. When things actually get, knock on wood, to a good spot, I feel like that could possibly be in the fall, we're hoping. But how do you see you and the band kind of performing? Like, how do you see that transition? Have you had any concepts of maybe certain things you may do? Is it kind of just business as usual in your mind? I don't know. Is that sort of a process you thought about yet?
It's a really, really good question. Like, great time to start a band, right? When concerts are illegal. It's like starting a bar during Prohibition or something. So we used to play, when we were in our band a million years ago, we played as much as possible, and it was a lot of fun. As Manic here, we've never performed live. But I mean, I'm of course open to it. I love like live music. Right now, I think just because it's like a lot of things up in the air, you know, I have like you guys are music fans, you probably too. I have all these like concert tickets that like they got rescheduled, and then they got rescheduled again, and then they got, and then some of them just like stop emailing you all together, and it's like what happened? So yeah, we do not have plans to play live. I like performing, and it would take, you know, we would have to, you know, find a drummer and some other members to support us on stage. But
right,
I'm actually right now really getting a kick out of thinking with the studio mindset, right? Because I think that like I know I do personally, but I know a lot of people have like a very important relationship with live music. But I also have always had this like very important relationship with like an album or like studio music, or like, you know, the music that we grew up with. That's like it sounds exactly the same, right, as it did when we were getting dumped when we were teenagers, and it's like this cool time capsule. So I really enjoy just making sounds and recording sounds right now. Maybe eventually we'll play live, but there's no imminent plans.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so hard to tell because, you know, I mean, it could be something where it's like, you know, July or something. Oh yeah, you're good. It's kind of like, when does the spigot turn, and how is that spigot going to shoot out? Is it going to be a trickle? Is it going to like burst a pipe? You know, like that's the thing I'm curious about, just in the macro sense.
Right, because people have been deprived, right? So you think that like everyone will be super excited once they're allowed, but then if there's some sort of flare up in cases or whatever, I think drive-in concerts would be cool. I think that's a good happy medium.
Yeah, we have a state fairgrounds in our city, and they've done that. They did that a little bit in the fall because in Vermont the numbers were actually almost like non-existent in the summer. We did really well from the beginning. Only just now, I mean, granted, nowhere near to compare like a state like California, but now it's kind of more nitty gritty. But back in the summer, they were doing some stuff if you had like social distancing in place, and they did do some drive-through concerts. That was pretty interesting to see. I was able to kind of catch one like behind the scenes. So
it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So we talked on the texting about mental health and talked about safe space, and safe space is like a thing, you know, for mental health, but kind of explain, you know, we've all been through it. I still go through it. Kind of explain how you were like, okay, maybe there's something up in my head that should probably get checked out.
Yeah. It's so crazy how long that can take, how old you can be when that, you know, when there's that last straw. I would say like I was in college. Really what opened the book for me was probably not even my mind, because one of my, okay, I have a lot of opinions about like mental health, so you've opened a can of worms here, but we will do anything to delude ourselves and deny and hide the fact that we're having some sort of problem. I think, especially men, and especially in our like adulthood, when we're trying to like establish a career or whatever, date or whatever, we want to seem normal so badly. And that's kind of the process I was going through, was like feeling really bad, feeling really physically anxious, and like I had like this was like college years, right? I'd like irritable bowel syndrome, where like my like guts were like farting through my stomach, you know, like I was so anxious that my body was like literally crying out like for help, right? So it was, and in order to feel normal, I was like compulsively exercising, running like several miles a day. It was this weird, like, it's this weird process, and I still have, I'm trying to find the right balance, but so I deal with depression and anxiety on kind of macro levels, and so and also I have ADHD, which was a more recent affirmation to get that diagnosis. But so to sort of combat lifelong, you know, late in the game diagnosed depression and ADHD, I've always like guzzled coffee, like really strong, like you know, caffeine and energy drinks, and like I've always like just been like, yeah, this will help me get my homework done, and then that causes the anxiety to kick in, right? So then I'm like, oh boy, now I'm too hyped up to even think about doing homework, and I start like getting paranoid and my mind's racing, and so it's all this ecosystem. It's this weird trying to find this balance, and that was when I first talked to like mental health professionals. I went to the like campus health center, and I was like, yeah, I think something's going on. My like stomach is yelling at me, and I never feel good. And so that was sort of the beginning of my journey with like actually having professional involvement with my mental health.
I agree with the trying to find the balance, because like I do a lot of stuff. Like I do jiu-jitsu, I work out at home, I do writing, do this, and then I don't know if you agree, but then you get the balance, like, oh, this is good, I'm going to work, I'm doing the fun stuff, and then something comes up, and then you're just like, bang, imbalance, it's back. It's like, oh, you're still there? I didn't know that. It's like so hard to find that balance when something comes up.
Dude, I just have to show you this. This is one of my latest tattoos. I don't know if you recognize this. It's the cover of Bring Me the Horizons. That's the spirit. But it's an umbrella with like the raindrops underneath the umbrella, and that's like the exact reason I got that tattoo, was this idea that I have my medications, I have my routines. There's still going to be shitty days. There's still going to be rain that gets through, and yeah, you're right. It's like right when you start to feel best is like when it sneaks up on you somehow. It's crazy. Yeah,
it's so true. It really is.
What's like a stigma you think with mental health? Because for us as men, it's like, hey, you can't be sad. You have to smile and just do it. Which I do have some of those days. I'm just like, no, just do it. It'll be fine. And then there's some days I'm like, no, I'm gonna lay in bed. I'm gonna watch TikTok all day because I just need to. I just need to just lay in bed and do nothing. and it's okay. But that's like my stigma with it. But is there any other stigmas that you think are like something that needs to be talked about?
Yeah, man. I think that like we need to be way more chill about medication. Like when I was drinking all that coffee, that was medication. Lots of people like have a cold one after work to calm the nerves. Like I think that like we have this idea that like if you have an orange pill bottle, you're like a different kind of person, right? But every single human being that's ever existed is just a balloon of chemicals, floating inside. And I don't think it's that. I don't think it means anything if you take an SSRI to take the edge off for anxiety and depression, or if you take stimulants if you have ADHD or whatever. That's one that really gets me, because even people that I know are like, and obviously there's privacy, and obviously I would never want to like extract information or force someone to overshare when they weren't comfortable with it. But I see this even with people that are very outspoken about mental health. They don't say what brand name pills they're on, or they don't talk about. It's like, I don't know. I just think that if this was a little more out in the open, like, and we would be able to be smarter about it, like it's sort of like how like teen parties are kind of dangerous because they always have to happen at the house where there's no parents, and then like your first experiences with like drug and alcohol are always the riskiest, because they're like back alley deals, they're whatever you can get, right? And so like this idea that you have to like, you only have one sort, like maybe your doctor recommends like some sort of medication to you or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just think that life would be a little bit better for everyone if we didn't try to pretend like mental health medications exist and help a lot of people every day.
Speaking some facts there, damn. I like
Yes.
it. But no, for me, you have a good point there. It's one of those things that I feel like the mental health discussion for everyone, especially men, has sort of had a breakthrough in the last maybe 3 to 5 years. But you're right. I feel like the door could be kicked down more, because not, like you said, maybe not everyone needs to talk about their medication, but if somebody is in the public eye is going through it, just them being like, yeah, I took this thing, it didn't work. I tried this pill, it worked wonders. Like that alone's a huge conversation. There's always this stigma, people may know from the show, like a backstory, but like I had family, they're like, oh, basically if you take any medication, like, you're weak, right? And it was like this hang up I had growing up, and it was some certain family. I'm like, Jesus, like maybe it's my fault. Like you turn into like this self-analyzing, like, oh, I'm doing the fucking problem. And then you realize, no, it's like people have, like you said, there's all these chemicals and things are off, and you need to sometimes get it looked at. And then, yeah, I learned about it through like, the doctor, and I was like, all right, yeah. Like for a while I was taking sertraline, and then I was at my job at the time, and they're like, oh yeah, I've taken that before. I was okay. Or this person, yeah, it works really well. And it was really cool to have that dialogue. So I'm like, no shit, okay. It's not just me. I'm not the only like oddball in the corner here with this issue. And it was such a really eye-opening and therapeutic thing for me. So I completely get what you're saying.
That's great, man. Thank you.
Definitely.
Max, if you have anything else, I'm about to get to my, the RJ corner with questions.
You know what? I do have one fun question from that playlist, because I was scoping through, and I have an interesting thing. Do you feel that the Life of Pablo from Kanye West is slept on? Because you had three
oh my God.
from that.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say it maybe slept on because it's died down. It was pretty hyped when it came out, right? Especially like Chance Chance being on there right in the beginning of the album and whatnot, like he was pretty big at the time. But I really like that album. I really like the production on that album, and I think I love it because it's so manic and so manic and ADHD, which is so what it the reason one of the reasons that playlist is the things that like I really took to heart in creating Safe Space, and a lot of the tracks on Safe Space have these weird shifts where like it'll be me singing and it'll just cut to a sample, and so that was something that I definitely took from those Life of Pablo, like I really like that album just because of how sporadic and fast he makes changes, and the use of samples. It's really interesting how he just like, I love that idea of just smashing things together, just forcing them to work.
So you're probably more into the Kanye catalog of like Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Ladder versus maybe College Dropout up to like Graduation, because obviously like 808s is like that first one that kind of like chiseled it, and Dark Twisted Fantasy is like that one. Oh, that's like a episode of the show in itself. But
right,
yeah,
you'll have to bring me back when you talk about that one, because that's a masterpiece.
Oh yeah,
but, yeah, no, I am, I enjoy like Stronger, and I enjoy the song he did with the Coldplay guy and his classics, but I like the idea of like Kanye as this mad scientist, that's just like smushing audio together, and yeah, that's kind of like how I felt making Safe Space, on a lesser level.
Yeah, no, I noticed that, and it's like, okay, because I feel like a lot of people, there's like certain Kanye fans. There's like either ones that are like so hell-bent on like College Dropout, and it's like, oh, I miss the old Kanye. And obviously like those samples, I think what really sold that album so much is the samples of it. And then yeah, Graduation, how do I word Graduation? I loved Graduation when it came out, but it is one of the tracks, if you go back, or albums you go back to now, there are certain aspects that feel dated, but that was just kind of in the moment. But then there's some tracks that are timeless on there. But then once you get to like 808s and Heartbreaks, it's like, okay, this is kind of the eye opener that leads to, really in a sense, like what Drake became and what kind of The Weeknd became. You can kind of see that lineage. But then, like you said, Dark Twisted Fantasy and Yeezy or Yeezus, that's like the ones you're like, oh my gosh, okay, like you said, mad scientist. So it's very interesting to see. There are like 3 or 4 different levels of like Kanye fans. So I was curious to see when you had Pablo, I'm like, okay, I see where he's going with this.
Yeah. You nailed it, dude. I'm glad you appreciate that.
Oh, I definitely do. Yeah, RJ, I'll let you do the big three.
The big three?
Woo,
yeah.
woo.
So David, what would you say it's like the hardest thing about being in a band?
The hardest, I haven't listened to every single interview you guys have done, so I really am, I'm self-conscious about saying something someone's already said. So let me know. Let me do it. Give me a mulligan if I'm about to do that.
Fair enough.
I do have an answer. I'll say compromising your creative vision with someone else's. Like,
that's new.
Like the idea that like I sit down, I have an idea for a song in my head, right? And I step up to the mic in Brian's studio, like when we made Talk, etc. And like I know what it sounds like in my head, and then I record the vocals, and then he starts producing it. He adds textures to it and plugins to my voice and stuff, and it's like he'll send it to me, and it's like if it doesn't sound he might have like a totally different idea of like what he's going for with that. And like that's the thing, is music is so subjective, and music is so there's no right answers, right? Yet like a really important part of it is trying to like go for that I don't know, the song, the perfect song in your head. I think every musician has like a platonic ideal of like the song that every time they sit down to write a song, they're trying to write like that like perfect song that they've been chasing their whole life. And we strive for that. It keeps us going, and it's like the carrot dangling in front of the horse. But working with other people, sometimes your horses are going in different directions. And I really like the guys that I've worked with on Manic Year, and I really value their friendship, and they're really, really, really smart, creative dudes. But it's just hard to find the compromise sometimes.
Yeah, that's actually a new one. So we haven't heard that one yet. What's the one thing that you didn't think of when you started a band or started playing music? They're like, oh, I should have thought of that.
That's a good one. That's a thinker that I didn't think of. The problem is, I was like born in front of a TV watching MTV with like music videos, and I just kind of always imagined myself being a musician. So I was always going through the hypotheticals of what it would be like and what it would require, and then I sort of like gave up on that dream for many years, and that was I'm sure was a factor in me like getting very depressed at times. But something I don't think about is what are some good ones? What are some good ones you've gotten? Do you remember?
Have we remembered
Previously?
That'd be a cool question.
I think money was a big one.
Yeah, money, or like maybe the level of like kind of like the level of dedication you take for like your craft, or like Mike from Conviction sort of said that like when you're performing, people think like, oh yeah, you're gonna see like a city and see different things, but it's really like the van and the venue. And that was another thing that was kind of brought up is like, I think people, like you said, see more of like the glossy parts, but not the process. So in order to do what you do, kind of like what we do here, you gotta love that process.
Yeah, okay. I got it now. I can put my own spin on that. So I don't think I realized just how little the percentage of time you spend actually making music is. Like just because to be like I am Manic Year's designer and merch distributor and social media person and marketer, whatever. So like just the amount of hours that I spend on Manic Year in a given week is like 10 to 1 not making music to actually like making the thing that Manic Year is, right? And it's interesting because I've heard other artists talk about how their income comes from not the music really at all, but from merch and tour. Like that's how musicians can sustain themselves. And it's just so weird. It's so weird, this idea that like you cram a band into a studio for a couple weeks and you like crank out an album, and then you spend the rest of the year touring it and selling t-shirts, and like you're a traveling t-shirt company. And I kind of like that in some ways, because like I am interested in like branding as an art, and I don't know, I just think it's so counterintuitive. But yeah, like that is something that's really weird about, and that I didn't expect, is that like musicians don't spend as much time making music as a lot of people probably think.
And it's true. I mean, when concerts were a thing, the last concert I went to, like, yeah, the band would come down and see you and stuff and hang out, but like, there's like, say there were 6 members, 4 of them were at the merch booth. Be like, buy our shirts.
Yeah, I've literally heard many musicians say explicitly, like, all of our like income comes from like merch sales. So it's crazy,
It is.
especially now with streaming, right? Like,
So you being a teacher, well, not. Wait, hold on. Are you still teaching right now in the whole COVID thing?
yeah. So no, it would have been my first year full-time teaching, and just like with not knowing if schools are going to be in session, it just didn't work out where I was going to be a teacher this year. And also, I just got so interested in the music. But I am very like passionate about like educating the youth, and that sounds really stupid and cheesy, that what just came out of my mouth, but I think it's important. I think learning things is important. How about that?
Right.
Is that more
Right.
colloquial?
Yes. Which would lead me into the last question I have, which is, if somebody came up to you and was like, David, I want to start a band. I want to start playing guitar. I want to start singing. What's like 3 things you would tell them off the bat? Like, okay, you need this, and you gotta look out for this too. What are the 3 things you would like give them?
Okay. One is a big sticker on your mirror that you brush your teeth in front of in the morning that says "fuck the haters," because honestly, if you want to make art, if you want to make music, if you want to make something that you're going to share with people, that is not something that's like an easy road to an easy career path, or something that's like that society is sort of conveyor belting you onto, you have to give it your all, and you have to not care what people are going to think about you. I didn't get tattoos until semi recently, because just the way I was raised, and the like, this is talk about stigma, the idea that like no one's gonna hire you if you get tattoos. But I love the Lil Peep. You guys know Lil Peep?
Yes. Yep.
Big fan of his music, but he has this thing. I think he said it in an interview, where the reason he got his face tattoos was so that he wouldn't be able to get a normal job. So he would have to be a musician or an artist or something outside of the box. And so that's something that I would tell someone trying to be a musician, is that like, you just gotta keep running and don't look back. And the people that are screaming at you to stop, you just need to just know that they're there. They're always going to be there, and block them out. Just don't let it phase you. That's an important part. You said 3 things. So if that's number 1, we'll go 2. I think you need someone who's going to scream at you to keep going. I think you need a buddy. You need someone that's going to support you morally, and is going to, you can send your music to. And I think that like, whatever, a lot of the times we just kind of fall into social circles, right? A lot of the times we just sort of just happen to have the friends that we do, but we don't always think about how those social circles are affecting us, or helping us or hindering us in achieving our goals, or metamorphosizing into what we actually want to be. And you need at least one person, if you want to make anything, if you just want to like draw a picture, you need at least one person that you can be like, hey, I did this, and they're like, that's hecka cool, you should do that again. And I've had times in my life where I didn't have that. I've had times in my life when I was had that abundantly. And it's hugely important to have at least one person that's going to cheerlead for you, and just pay it forward, be their cheerleader back, or someone else's cheerleader. But I think that's super important, is to have people that are supporting you. Is this turning into your longest podcast ever?
No, we had one a couple weeks ago from a buddy of ours we know who does like music around here. We clocked in like 2 hours, 10 minutes. You are fine.
Okay. All right. That's great. Then I'll go on to number 3, which is more specific to music, which is to have a means to record yourself. That was a huge step for me when I wasn't, or if I wanted to try a guitar riff or try a like a vocal melody, I didn't have to go to someone else's house and wait until it fit their schedule and do that, to literally where it's in the same room as the bed I sleep in. I could wake up and get onto the computer and start singing whatever song I heard in my dream last night, like being able to record yourself, whatever it is. There's options out there. There's GarageBand, that comes with every Mac product. And I really, 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 really think it's important, even if it's not the whatever software you end up using for your final production, if you want to like transfer that something later on. But yeah, like to be able to have your own little sandbox, right? Like that, because that's also kind of a safe space, because like if you're going to a studio or something, like that's, you don't feel comfortable to experiment as much and to kind of like get out of your shell as much as if you just like have like your bedroom like workspace. So yeah, I would say just the means to record yourself. So just to review, I do have teaching credential. We have the sticker that says "fuck the haters." We have the cheerleader friend. Just think of like your bro at the bar, but he's like wearing like a cheerleader outfit, and he's like, yeah, go.
That pom pom.
And right, and then the means to record yourself. That's all it takes, and then you're a musician. I mean, I'm not super successful or anything, but I think that those things are super important.
I like it.
Mic drop with that one. I don't know about you, Max, but this has been fun.
No, this has been great. Actually, I want to do an honest shout out, just keeping it real. But I think of all the guests we have on our show, I feel like I have to give you a lot of credit for actually knowing us and like looking into our interviews and stuff. You're by far like leaps and bounds anyone else we have, and it's not a knock on them, but it's just really cool to have that dialogue and almost like a familiarity of like feel like I've known you for like a long time in life without knowing you for a long time in life. So I really appreciate that personally. So thank you.
Yeah.
No, thanks for doing what you guys are doing, and nerding out about music and inviting me to be on your show. That's like pretty cool. And yeah.
Oh, of course, definitely. Obviously the big stuff is with the EP and with all these different projects, and you yourself. How can people kind of learn more about you guys? Music end, social end, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so manicyear.com is like kind of the general hub. We're pretty active on Instagram. We're technically everywhere, but social media is an interesting beast. Yeah, I would just say look us up on whatever you listen to music on. Whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, we're going to be there. Manic Year. We have the new EP Safe Space will be popping up on there. I think you guys saw it. I think it's maybe peeking out on Apple Music scene. We're waiting for the distribution all settle out, but yeah. So manicyear.com, whatever music platform you listen to. And yeah, that's where you'll find us.
Awesome. That sounds great. It's good when you have everything out there. And you're right. I totally get that. I feel like there's certain apps that we have more interaction on than others, but you try juggle. It's like juggling like bowling pins. It's a lot of things to keep tabs on.
Yeah, and it's like there's learning curves to everything too. You like you guys have mentioned TikTok a few times, like on this podcast, which is like I think you mentioned this in that episode, how our generation there's a little bit of a hurdle into like what is this? There's like kids dancing, and it's like you know, it's things just change so fast now, like whatever's the new hot like app that people are discovering music on. But yeah, that's why I just say manicyear.com, because like I don't think the internet is going on style anytime soon.
No, I think that's tried and true. So well, awesome. Well, David, and also Danny, who was on, and Brian too, thank you so much for being on. We'll talk to you a little bit in post here, but we appreciate having you on today.
It's been a thrill, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. And as always, people watching, you know who we are. We're Streaming Cassettes. You can go on Wingman. I did this last week too. I am just fucking up. Wingmantheyear.com. Get your shows, get your blog, get your merch. And I might as well just have you do the freaking outros, because I'm just like screwing up. So
I know. Buy shirts like this. Buy their shirts too. They have a couple.
Support the shirts.
Yeah, shirts are awesome.
Since bands aren't performing, get merch. It's great.
And I say every show, buy their merch.
Yes, he is. I don't even know why I'm here. But as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Streaming Cassettes signing out. Peace.